From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach blanket fort bingo. Beach blanket fort bingo. Fort bingo. Spouse has got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beach blanket fort bingo. Fort bingo. Art and music, golden view, and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach blanket fort bingo podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I've got a long way to go. I've got a long way to go.
Hello and welcome to Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'm your host, Steve Schnee. And before I introduce our special guests, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's the James Bond to my Blofeld. He's the Fresh Prince to my DJ Jazzy Jeff. He's the Tom to my Jerry, or the Jerry to my Tom. Whichever the cat is, that's him. He's a cool cat. He's cool like Corey Feldman in a movie that Corey Feldman dances in. In fact, my co-host taught Corey Feldman how to dance, and he's here today to make sense of everything I say. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Barnett.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Steve. All true, as usual. Thank you.
Now, our guests today are two musical legends. Some may know Arlis Peach for the great work he did for legendary power pop label Titan Records, including the single I Wanna Be. Larry Lee was the main singer-songwriter in the sorely overlooked power pop band The Scooters, who released two albums on EMI America in the early 80s. However, these two musicians were childhood friends who spent most of the 60s and 70s writing and recording a plethora of phenomenal songs together as Peach and Lee. Although they only released one single in 1971, Reminder Records has just released a double vinyl LP set entitled Not for Sale, which contains more than 24 previously unreleased pop music gems, influenced by all the greats, the Beatles, the Hollies, Badfinger. Peach and Lee's incredible body of work remained largely unheard by the general public until now. Regardless of when it was recorded, Not for Sale is one of the best albums of 2023, and pop music fans are taking notice. And now, for the first time, Arlis Peach and Larry Lee are here together to discuss this amazing release and how it came to be. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Arlis and Larry, also known as Peach and Lee. Welcome to the Blanket Fort, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Now let's get right into this. Okay, first off, this is an amazing, nearly life-changing release. It's just so amazing. But I want to go back to the beginning. When and where did the two of you meet?
Oh, geez. I guess it must have been 1956,
7 or 8,
56, 57.
57 probably. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one photo on the liner notes of us eating dirt clouds.
Eating dirt clods made by his sister. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Wow, Ronnie, you're really good.
Yes.
Look at that.
Steve, this guy's good.
I'm trying.
Yeah. See that?
Trying, Larry. You got me. You got me on.
The reason why I have Ronnie on is because he's so darn good. He almost makes me look good. Now, at what age though did you realize that you wanted to create music together, and was there a catalyst that inspired you to do so?
Well, we met when we were early, like maybe 6 years old, something like that, out in the country. Then I moved to the city a couple of years after meeting Larry. So we split up, never saw each other again till about the 5th grade or so when I was in school. And Larry was still living out in the country, and they bussed him in, strangely enough, to my school. So we met again by accident in gym class, and started the relationship from there, not realizing we'd already known each other.
Oh,
Pretty strange, huh? Yeah.
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 So you had no clue that Larry was the guy that you were eating dirt clods with.
No, had no idea. No, not until his mother.
None.
We later on we found out, but yeah, no, we had no idea when we met again. So I guess it's Providence, right? Or
What city is this, Arlis? What city are we in at this point?
this was Council Bluffs, Iowa,
Okay.
the big town of Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Gotcha.
So at what point did you guys start making music, or at least getting interested in music and
I
like
think
sharing
we-
that?
I think we were writing songs individually before we even really got together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I had written something called "I Live by the Sea" or something like that.
I remember it well.
Yeah, actually, Arlis does remember. And Arlis was writing, so we were both writing. We were both into music.
Mhm.
And I remember going to a school, being in gym class, saying, "No way I'm climbing a fucking rope, and no way I'm changing out of my blue jeans." So we just started talking about music and hit it off.
Mhm. Now,
Did you
when
guys have instruments? Did you have did you have guitars at this point, or
I had a 61 Les Paul,
oh,
which was pretty remarkable.
Beautiful. 61 Les Paul Jr. Just gorgeous. Yeah.
wow.
Now, when you guys first came together, were you just sort of showing each other the songs you had written, or do you even remember like the first song that you wrote when you guys came together as a duo?
Well, after we met again at school, then we ended up getting, once we realized that we were into music, we got together after school, and that's where it started. I mean, he already had a guitar. I was actually playing drums at the time. I actually started out as a drummer. And so we would do some things, and then I learned guitar as well. But it, like Larry said, we'd already been writing. I was writing when I was 9 or 10 songs in my head before I could play, right?
Yeah.
Before I knew how to play anything. So, and we were so busy, both of us into the 50s music, right? Late 50s, that by the time we got together, it was just kind of a no-brainer. We just started writing together immediately.
Do you remain the same or do you change? Do you change? Picture me in paradise, anywhere you are. I can see you're lonely just like me, and you need the time to get things down. Picture me.
At this point, when you were first writing songs, was it a true collaboration, or was there something where Larry would have a song maybe a third or a half finished and then bring it in and then you would work on it together? Or did everything sort of start and end with both of you together?
No, I think we each had probably an idea that he would listen to or I would listen to and go, "Oh, let's jump on this."
Mhm.
We would do it. I mean, I don't think it was like, "Hey, I got this new song I got to show you." It was just kind of like once we were skipping school, spending all our time in Alice's living room. I mean, we were just like playing, and then Arlis play something or I play something, and I would go, "Oh, that's cool," or he'd go, "Oh, what's that?" And then it would go on. That's how it was launched. I kind of remember.
Did you have a band like a school band that played covers and like maybe no, you immediately were like songwriters. That's
Well,
Yeah,
later
we-
on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't think
ahead.
we even knew anybody that played music there, did we?
now that's why it was so strange for Larry and I to get together, because there was really nobody in that school besides us that had anything to do with music, right? I mean, it was just, I don't know how it came together, it just did. And then later on, we found out that we knew each other from the past, right? But we started writing, collaborating. He would write a bit, and I would add to it, or I would write a bit and he would add to it. So early on, it was certainly collaboration. I would write the middle eight and he'd write, the verse and the chorus or whatever.
Mhm.
but it was definitely a collaboration all the time. He would come up with an idea, or
Sure.
I would come up with an idea. Then we would sit down and work it out.
Right. Right
Yeah,
now,
we didn't really formulate, we're gonna do this or try to write a ballad or try to write this. We just kind of, we were just like, first off, Arlis was a drummer. I was a guitar player. I didn't play bass. He didn't play guitar. He's the guitar player on everything. I'm the bass player on everything. So it's just kind of weird.
Right.
So we were just kind of learning, and as we were learning, because we were writing throughout, our young adult lives or whatever, we just started, learning chords and this and that, and all of a sudden we'd hear something, we'd finish it up.
right.
And
Well,
harmonies came to us really, really easy because Everly Brothers, all those kind of acts. It wasn't the Beatles.
right. Right.
Wow.
Well,
So the earliest songs on this record are from like, I want to say 1965, if I'm right.
64.
64,
Or,
65.
uh,
So
we're,
how did
we're not
how did
sure
two,
which one.
right? How did two kids in Iowa end up in a recording studio, or was it a recording studio, or was it your home recording?
No, it
Equipment.
wasn't. It wasn't a recording studio. There was a little store that you could go in and pay $15 for 30 minutes and record. You could record. I think probably like "I Love You, Mom and Dad" or "Happy Birthday" or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think we found out we could take a couple guitars and sing. We'd written these two songs. They're the last two songs on this double album, and we just kind of went in with a couple guitars and asked if we could do it, and they said, "Yeah, sure, give us your money."
so those two songs are the earliest songs on Not For Sale. Approximately what year were those recorded? That was 65?
64.
64 or 5. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, do you remember beforehand what was the earliest song that you felt was good enough that you collaborated on? What was the first Peach and Lee song that you felt, okay, this is heading in a certain direction? I like this.
Well, probably those two that are on that, that are at the end of that album. Those two were probably the first two we actually finished together. You know what I mean? That we felt was strong enough to actually record.
Right. Well, you're looking at somebody, you mentioned the Everly Brothers, and even going to Buddy Holly and to going to later on the Beatles and the Hollies. But was there a particular song that's either included here or a song that we have not heard yet that you finally said, yeah, this is our sound. This is Peach and Lee. This isn't us impersonating anybody. This is really truly our unique thing.
I don't think so.
No, I don't really. No, I think, it just, you start out emulating somebody, right? Or a band or whatever. But, our harmonies kind of, I think it's part of what threw this together was, it was kind of it just came so easy to us, right? I don't know. We never worked on vocals. We never ever worked on harmony or anything. When we sat down, I'd write a song or he'd write a song, and we would just do the harmonies. We never worked on it, right? So the harmony thing kind of got us like, okay, we could probably do this, right? We're good enough, we could do this. Individually, I didn't think we were strong enough singers, right, to actually sing. But when the Beatles kind of proved that you don't have to be a songwriter to be a singer, and you don't have to be a singer to be a songwriter either, right? So they kind of broke that mold to where the average songwriter could also sing his own songs, right? So that was kind of the catalyst for us, where it all came together pretty easily.
But there's something for me to relate. You see, I know you've been running around every day. Yes, I see you with him, and I know now that this is the end. When I get home, why did you lie? Why did I believe what you said?
Did it get to the point where kind of like you wanted to make this music, to go out and get a recording contract, or did you just enjoy the art of crafting these perfect little songs, or was it a bit of both?
No, it was always about making records.
Mm-hmm.
It was
I mean,
always
I
about
think
getting,
I think once you know, the whole British invasion thing happened, it was
yeah.
like we had honed ourselves enough that we could write and sing, and I think we knew exactly. I think we really wanted to be a Beatle, not the Beatles, but a Beatle, you know, because it was like that's kind of what, you know, they kind of started it, where you could sit down, watch Ed Sullivan, see this band, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw anything like it ever,
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted, you know, we just really wanted to be that, but not them. And it just
Right.
kind of took off from there, because we were writing, you know, our harmonies were really good, and you know, that was it kind of.
With so many songs written and recorded, you only officially released one single on RCA in 71, and you already had a great backlog of material.
Yeah.
Um, did you think that, well, with your record coming out, that it was the perfect time for Peach and Lee? Because, you know, you had around that time period, you know, you had Badfinger, Raspberries were going to come a little bit later, or did RCA just kind of fumble that single?
Well, you know what? Ours it went through a bad thing with RCA.
Mhm.
RCA, we were signed to East Coast, and then we were signed to West Coast. Is that right, Arlis? East and
Actually,
West?
the other way around, West
Yeah,
Coast
West
first.
Coast and then East Coast. And we recorded for both. And then RCA decided to drop everybody on their label. We were probably the first to go. So
Right.
Something happened. Something happened in the early '70s, and I don't know what with RCA. There was some kind of a corporate uh, mashup or something. So not only did we get dropped, but there were a lot of other artists that got dropped, and producers too that got dropped during that same '70s thing. So as soon as the single came out, we got releases within the mail, probably within a year. Right within that first year, we got just releases in the mail, no explanation or nothing. So that was kind of like, whoa, what happened, right? Because we thought we were on our way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We landed a national contract at the age of 18 or whatever it was we were. So that was kind of an amazing thing. So we thought the path was laid out for us, right? But then boom, RCA just dropped us out of nowhere,
Hmm.
and so then it was a struggle to keep going, right?
but after that, I don't think we were ever trying to find a record deal. We were trying to find the next studio to go in and finish the songs that we're writing, because
Right.
we wrote like crazy. We still
Yeah,
write all the time.
we
So we
still
weren't
write
looking
like
for
crazy. Yeah.
a record deal. We were looking for that next studio that we could go in and record.
Wait, going back a little bit, how does RCA find you? Are you guys sending tapes to all the
Uh,
major labels, or
there was this guy. Well, you can explain it, or else.
There was a guy. His name was Michael Z. Gordon. He had a hit back in the '60s with the Marquettes and Out of Limits,
Hmm.
and he was in Omaha, Nebraska, going around to the recording studios looking for artists, and he happened to go into a studio that Larry and I had recorded, half a dozen songs at, and they played him those songs, and he called the studio and said, "Hey, I need to get a hold of these guys." And so then the studio called us. We got together with Michael Gordon, signed with him, and he's the one that actually went back to LA, shopped the tapes, got us a deal with RCA.
Okay.
Michael Z. Gordon.
So like throughout the 60s, you know, after that, you know, you know, those first couple songs, um, was this just the situation? You would just go into a studio, record your songs, and then, uh, were you touring a lot in the 60s and into the early 70s? Were you playing with a lot of bands at that time?
I
Well,
mean,
not in the
we went
'60s,
out,
not really.
yeah, but we went out and played. I mean, you know, I think in the early days we were playing sock hops and
Yeah,
YMCA gyms
Hmm.
yeah.
in the battle of the bands that we always
Battle
wanted.
of the Bands, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. And that was early, God, what was that? Early 60s, right? Or
Yeah,
mid
yeah.
60s, late
Late
60s.
what
late '60s.
Yeah.
What were you guys
But,
wearing?
we
Were you
can
wearing
actually-
matching outfits? What were you wearing on stage in the early 60s?
I knew
Yeah, we
you
had
would
combo
ask.
clothes. Yeah,
Everybody knows Ronnie now.
we had combo clothes.
Yeah, combo. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we went through that. We went through that for a while. It's kind of strange because, you know, once we got in the studio, we realized that that was our holy grail, right? We
Yeah.
didn't really care about much of anything else. We never really wanted to go play clubs or, you know, we had to. We went and did that. We did the whole biker bar thing, and you know, we played the lounge lizard circuit and that sort of thing. But early on, once we got a taste of the studio, that was pretty much it, and that's what we went for. We're constantly trying to get into the studio to record more of our stuff, and that's why this album is so straggled, because there are songs from the 60s all the way up to mid 70s almost, right? So it's a compilation, different studios, different cities, different states, you know. But the holy grail for us was always the studio.
Well, when you know, you talk about playing like the biker bars and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When you played live, was it did you have some musicians with you, or was it always a duo?
It started off as a duo, right? No, we started off in a band called the Lads, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was Peach and Lee playing like Satan's Pizza Parlor or something like that with 2 acoustic guitars.
Yeah. If we didn't have a band, then we went out and played as a duo with pizza places. But we were always struggling to put a band together. But let's face it, in Council Bluffs, Iowa, Omaha, Nebraska, you know, it's not the best terrain to find talent, right? So it was hard for us to put a band together and to keep a band together, with Larry and I being kind of strong-minded about what we wanted, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's always been Peach and Lee, whether we were in this band or that band, it was always, you know, the next version of Peach and Lee or the next version. But actually, Peach and Lee that wasn't actually our name. It was never intended to be our name. Those are just our writing names, right? So what happened, it was RCA that went behind our backs. We were actually called the Makers at the time of the RCA single. And RCA wanted to call us Peach and Lee, and we refused. We said, no, we're not a duo, we're a band, right? And at the time we were. But so we did not want the name Peach and Lee. And so, believe it or not, after we left New York, we recorded in LA. LA sent the tapes to New York. New York hated what LA did. So LA sent us to New York. We did the tapes again in New York. Then they released them, sent us back. And, you know, in the meantime, we'd gone through several transitions, right? You know, once they dropped us, then it was kind of a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
But I'm happy they dropped us, to be honest with you, because we wouldn't have had the control that we had over our songwriting and the songs that we did. To come up with 27 songs was pretty easy, because we still have tons of songs that nobody's ever really heard. A lot of songs that are recorded.
So volume 2.
Volume 2. Find them. No, they're somewhere.
Well, that's the thing, you know, that's the thing. It's been so long that Reminder Records had some issues trying to locate all these tapes, because you know, it's been 50 years. I lost stuff in storages, right? Over the years. So I didn't have hardly any Peach and Lee stuff, right? So when this came about, they had to do some searching to find enough of these songs. Well, once they did, they realized that there was more than a double album, right? There was 50 or 60 songs. So Reminder Records had a little bit of a trouble trying to actually narrow it down to 27, right? And there was a few that couldn't make the grade sonically, you know what I mean, that were poorly recorded or whatever. So those didn't make it in either as well.
Right.
And some of those I think are the better songs.
What, the stuff that didn't make it are the better songs?
Well, it's just because, you know, the way it was recorded, it was distorted on one side. It couldn't be,
Oh, right.
put the
Because you got to
back
remember
together.
all the songs on that album were taken off of reel-to-reel tapes or cassette tapes, right?
Yeah.
So they had to be transferred digitally from that. So it wasn't even like, they had a studio mix where they could really mix stuff. It was already done. All they could do was Jessica Thompson, who remastered it, did a great job of remastering those tapes. That's why it sonically sounds as well as it does, is because of her. Literally.
Yes.
Yeah, no, she was unbelievable. But I had a storage room, and I went in and I found a box of tapes, cassettes, from 71 to 65 to, on and on and on. And I finally put them all together. And then we got a couple from back east through some friends, through our road manager had a couple things, and and it just, we ended up with these 27 songs.
Now there's no way, baby, you're not gonna hurt me. No way, baby, I've got news for you. You've been around for many a year and never looked my way. Had nothing then that interested you. What have I got today?
So how did this project come together? Did Reminder approach you about it? Did somebody else, put a bug in somebody's ear? What happened?
Yeah, well, Reminder reached out to me. I hadn't talked to Arlis in
A long time.
long time. And so Reminder reached out to me. I put in a call to Arlis and said, hey, what do you think? And that's kind of how it was done.
Hmm.
We just had to go and find tapes and see if it was even worth it. And you know what? We really wanted to make sure that Jeremy was the right person, because everybody kind of wanted. There was kind of a buzz about Peach and Lee the last 6 or 7 months,
Hmm.
and everybody was starting to reach out and go, "Hey, you guys interested? Are you interested? Are you the interested?"
Hmm.
And so we just kind of went, I think Jeremy's the right guy.
Now here we are in 2023, and a lot of this music is roughly 50 years old and older, and it's finally getting the release and the praise that it has deserved all this time. How are you feeling about the reaction to it?
Well, because of you, that's why we're wearing these. Because of you, Steve.
Well,
Aw.
Yeah.
We're big fans of yours.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, and yours too, Ronnie.
Hey,
You
you don't have to say that, but Larry.
No, I know.
Everybody's a fan of Ronnie.
Steve said every time I say something good about you, he's going to, give me a little extra money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I need to have him
Yeah.
extend his beach blanket fort bingo contract. So
Anyhow, so that's, because of you, I mean, you've kind of generated a certain energy for Arlis and I think.
Yeah.
mhm.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Because basically Arlis and I would be doing what we're doing.
I'll tell you, honestly, Steve, when when this was approached to both of us, my first thought was that it'd be nice, because I hadn't heard some of these songs in 50 years too, right? We hadn't heard these songs in a long time. The tapes were lost, the tapes were gone, they were in somebody's garage or whatever. So when I first started hearing all these Peach and Lee songs again, I thought, you know what? It would be great if the 10 or 12 years that Larry and I, recorded together, it would be great if all that was in one place, right? Because it never has been, right?
Mhm.
You got a tape that's got 3 songs on it, you got another tape that's got 2 songs on it. Now it's been all pulled from wherever corner it could be and put together in one thing. So my idea was that I thought, well, it'd be great just to have it archived, right? Not that anything's going to happen with it, just to get it out there. Peach and Lee had a lot of songs, not just Hold On from RCA in
Yeah.
1971, right?
Mhm.
So I just thought it would be great, a great compilation album to get all of Peach and Lee stuff together, no matter what happens with it, right? It's now it's at least in one place. You can listen to 27 songs in a row, which that's thrilling for me, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I hadn't heard this stuff in 20 years. It's like listening to some other band
Yeah.
for most of us, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of look at it that, somebody actually wanted to archive our musical lives.
Yeah.
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 And that,
I think
that,
we were more surprised than anybody would be, right? Well,
yeah.
it's 50 years old. Who wants to hear that old stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously people like Ronnie and I, and there's
Exactly.
there's a lot of people out there who the minute this thing hit the streets, people were going crazy over this. It's because you guys created something magical. This proves that music stands the test of time. Music, no matter how it's recorded, is going to be timeless if it's good quality music. And that's why when you put this on, sometimes I'm not thinking, oh yeah, this is a 50-year-old recording. Sometimes I'm thinking,
Yeah.
friggin' that chord change, or man, those harmonies are very sibling like.
I think we're pretty blessed. I mean, I know Arlis is the same way. We can hear a melody and instantly I hear a harmony.
Mhm.
If you were to sing a melody to me, I would put a harmony to it instantly. Wouldn't have to sit around and think about it. It just came automatically. And that's
when
how
this
we always work together. We never, ever worked on harmonies like, oh, okay, can you go up a little higher? Never.
Yeah.
We
No.
work that way.
Yeah.
It was
And I think if it did, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Right.
In
Right.
fact,
Right.
I know for a fact we would have. So
right.
Ronnie?
If we'd have had to work at it, no, I would have.
No.
Writing songs is hard enough, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's true. Not everybody can do it. I mean, anybody can write a song. Doesn't make it good though, right? So anybody who writes might think their stuff is good. Larry and I we had a knack, and we wrote a lot of stuff together, and it was just a matter of we weren't sure what was going to happen with it, really. After the RCA thing, we thought, okay, we're on our way. Well, that was the wrong thought, because that was the beginning of the struggle, right? That was the beginning. It had been gravy up to that point. After the RCA thing, then it became a struggle. And I don't think people don't realize nowadays that in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, nobody had home studios, right? You couldn't go out and get a recorder for $2,000 and get a home studio together. It wasn't like that. So Larry and I spent a lot of our time getting into other studios, getting to studios where we could record this stuff, not really knowing what was going to happen with it. Just, we have all these songs and we need to record them.
But the thing is, we had a 2-track Sony sync on sync, I guess it is.
Sound on sound, yeah.
Sound on sound, that we would do drums and a guitar, and then put that down to one, and then do a melody, and then put that down, and then do a bass and a guitar and put that down, and keep doing that. So we really did have one of the first home studios. I mean, some of this stuff.
Yeah. So
I believe Down, the song, which I love that song, done that way. It was in Arlis's living room.
So you were just bouncing instruments to tracks, recording them, bouncing it to one, recording more, bounce. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's how we did it.
I've been waiting all my life, girl. Why won't you dance with? Why won't you dance with? Why won't you dance with me? Why won't you dance with me? Why won't you dance with? Why won't you dance with?
By the time we got into an actual recording studio, now that's 2 tracks that Ronnie mentioned at the end of the album. Those 2 early songs. Obviously, you listen to that, you can tell those are some pretty young guys, right? And our harmonies they're there, but I listened to it. I almost didn't want to put it on the album. This is honest to God truth. I hesitated. I did not want, what is it? Why Won't You Dance With Me and Please Girl, or whatever the name of that song is. I didn't really want it on there because I thought, man, I don't want people to hear how bad we were back in the earlier days, right? But being
But it's still
archived,
fantastic.
it's like,
But
okay,
I,
they need to hear,
yeah,
they need to hear.
I
they need
wanted
to
it on there because that was us to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And it's also
No.
the youthful energy and the freshness behind it as well.
Yeah,
It
You
sounds
know.
like
Yeah.
it's like the Chipmunks. Come on, Keith,
It's
Keith, come
funny.
on. You know,
but
It's
you
a
know,
great way
the
to
truth
end.
is,
it was so
Yeah.
horrible. that
it
was
wasn't. It
great.
wasn't like Larry said earlier. It wasn't even an actual studio. It was someplace where you went in and you could send a message to your mother or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it went to acetate, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
recorded on tape. It was literally cut to an acetate disc.
Mhm.
And so when we walked out of there with that thing, we thought, that was gold, right? But in those days, it was hard to get in the studio because it was very expensive.
Mhm.
And so that's why Larry and I, did what we did to get back and forth. We would go just about anywhere to record in a real studio, right? An honest to God studio. So that was the holy grail for us. And what happened with the music, we weren't really sure what was going to happen with it. We just knew we had to keep moving forward. And so
Well,
we would record 3 songs, and then that is in the past, and then we move right on to the next couple of songs, the next 3 songs. So it was very bizarre listening to all these together, right?
Mhm.
Because they weren't written all at the same time. And you could tell the quality. And as far as the Peach and Lee sound, I think we were getting there, right? During the last few songs in the 70s or whatever, right, that we did together, I think Peach and Lee were getting their sound together. But up until then, we were just flailing around, right? That's
Mhm.
just the way it was.
But I
Just
think people,
flailing around.
I think people, generated to us and just kind of like let us come in and do, some recording because they could see something that we couldn't see. We just wanted to
Yeah.
record our song,
Right.
but they really kind of saw something and heard something like how you're talking about, Steve, or you,
They
Ron.
must have. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, I mean, we're not really paying for this. We don't have money, but
Yeah.
they're letting us go in and record and everything, and they're a part of it, and we're very, so it was just kind of really interesting how we didn't have money to go in and pay for it. I don't think we ever
No.
did.
See, I think a part of what makes this a special release, in my opinion, something that really stands out, is because obviously you were making music for the right reasons, to create the music, to create the art, to bring that melody to the surface and let it out into the world, as opposed to saying, hey, this might get to number 40, this next one might get to number 30, this one might get us a deal with Columbia, stuff like that.
Wasn't interested.
And now,
No.
did you guys even have a manager back then?
We had several.
Everyone wanted to be our manager.
We
We
had
couldn't let them be our manager
You know
until
what?
they fucked up.
Oh,
I've said this before. We probably have more managers in the 10 years that we were together recording than most people have in a lifetime, right? We had a lot of managers.
yeah.
Some good, mostly bad, some just out and out thieves. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You got to remember, this was the 60s and 70s. This wasn't the 90s or 2000, right? So it wasn't easy to get a record deal back in those kind of days. And that's why
Yeah.
I think there was such a gap from RCA, right? Because
Right.
it wasn't that easy to do. You had to follow a strict guideline. And Larry and I we didn't fall into any of those guidelines. So
Right.
the people that helped us along the way, got us in and out of the studios. Some of those were managers, right?
Mhm.
Some of them were good. Some of them, like I said, were just out and out thieves. But that's another story. But yeah, we had plenty of managers.
So I gotta ask,
Yeah.
because I'm from Houston, and I see one of these recording. It had to be one of your
Yeah.
managers, right? Got you down to Houston. Like, how did that happen? And what do you remember about the studio there? Or it's
It
not
was,
credited on the record. Yeah, it just says Houston.
Right.
So
It was a kind of a strange scenario because Larry and I drove down to Houston to do that. And honestly, in my memory, I don't really even remember who set that all up. I don't know. I really don't remember who it was, but we drove all the way down to. I remember this because we drove down to Houston in my '61 VW in the middle of summer with no air, and so from Omaha, right, to Houston,
Yeah.
and went in there and did 3 songs, and those 3 songs are on the album, right? But it was just, it was just like a standard Peach and Lee thing. We had 2 or 3 new songs, and so every time we go in the studio, we try new stuff, right? We don't want to do the old stuff, right? Got to do new stuff. So that happened to be one of those times we went down to Houston, and I don't even know how it got set up, but we went in there and did
Yeah,
those 3
I'm not sure how it got set up either, but we went in with Balloons, also our band, which was Nightcrawlers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Tony Bronico and Terry Wilson, Michael Montgomery, and they were kind of our band, and we kind of did the whole vocal thing on that.
Right. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
one of the very few
I don't
times that-
remember anything about the studio one bit. Don't
Yeah.
even remember being in it. Do
I remember
you?
we did some sort of a bank demo. I remember, I don't know how that happened, but we did some sort of a jingle for a bank too while we were down
And
there.
that's probably
I
how
remember
we
thinking,
got the gig. Is because
maybe, because I remember thinking, well, if the music thing doesn't work out, maybe we can do jingles, right?
can you do a bank commercial for us, and we'll let you go in and do a couple of your songs. That's
Exactly.
probably how it
Then you
came.
can go in and do Hold On or whatever.
But the best part of the whole experience for me was we were in a hotel eating, and me and Michael Montgomery were betting on who could pull the tablecloth out from underneath all the dishes,
Mhm.
and it just didn't work out very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was one of the few places we were asked to leave, I imagine.
Yeah.
I don't need you no more. Why don't we walk out the door? We tried so many times. That time is gone and changed my mind. Well, I'm sorry. Look the other way. 'Cause it happened in just a day. No, we never made the grade.
Arlis had mentioned that he didn't want the last 2 songs to be on there, and Larry, one of them was. Were there songs that each of you wanted on this that didn't get on there?
I don't think Arlis didn't want them on there because
I wanted
I
to,
just- what?
yeah, I wanted a disclaimer, is what I wanted. I wanted a disclaimer. And honestly, that's why they are at the end of the album and not mixed
Yeah.
somewhere in
Yeah.
between, right?
Mhm.
Well,
I didn't want
wanted them on
I didn't
there
want it to be the
because it
first
was-
song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted them on there because it was our beginning. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Right.
And the record
That's-
company, I think, wanted to put everything in
Chronological?
the year.
Chronological order.
Yeah.
We sure in the fuck weren't going to have, why
No.
won't you dance with me and it's so easy
First.
as the first
Yeah.
song, because somebody's going to listen to it and go, you got to be fucking joking me here.
Oddly enough, Larry had a lot to do with the sequencing of the album. He's the one that actually sat down and said, okay, here's 27 songs. What kind of order are we going to put them in? Because, it's not like a normal album where you did 12 songs in one studio, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's all done there and it's all in one place and you can easily just put them in order, right? These were things that were, some were done in 64, some were done in 74, right? So who knows, right? So I think the sequencing was I didn't really want to do it because the original plan was Larry and I and Jeremy from Reminder, we were all going to sequence the album and then kind of show each other what we thought and how it worked out. And I'm like, I don't even want to do that. I don't want to sequence
Yeah.
them at all, right?
Yeah.
So Larry, bless his heart, Larry sat down and pretty much sequenced him. He sent me the list and I said, yeah, I like that. Yeah. And I think maybe I changed 1 or 2 things that I said, I don't want that there. Let's put this over here. But other than that, Larry pretty much sequenced the album. I think he did a good job. Good job.
It sounds very cohesive. It doesn't, if somebody just listened to this record, didn't know the history or the,
Well,
different
and that was
recording
my-
sessions. Yeah.
That was my concern about the fact that they're so diverse. The album is so diverse.
Yeah,
On one
but
hand,
you know what?
it's
I
not-
mean, the songs were old enough and that we didn't hear them for all those years that it, for me, it was fresh that I
Yeah,
could
it was
look at
easy.
it. And I've had plenty of experience with sequencing albums. So I could listen to them and not get hung up, oh, that's us, and listen to that or whatever. I could put them in the right place.
Yes,
Right.
yes. You see, this is an album that, literally, if Ronnie's working in a store, he puts a needle down on the record. At any point when a customer walks in, they're going to be hit with something great. I don't care if it's the beginning of the album, the middle of the album, or the end of the album. They're going to be hit with something that's going to make them say, "Wow, what is this?" And Ronnie's going to say, "It's sold out."
Okay,
Because-
Ronnie, it's a quarter. I'll give you a quarter for every needle.
Yes.
drop.
No, I'm glad you're keeping track, Larry. Thank you.
And you know, you find the answers, but you haven't tried. Soon, you show the feelings you had to hide. You had to hide. So long, that's all I have to say.
For a newcomer who's never heard Peach and Lee, is there a song that you each of you consider the perfect gateway track? The song that you feel encompasses the best of what made Peach and Lee special?
I think one of the songs that kind of blew Arlis and I both away was probably "Not for Sale."
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
That
that's
was the
true.
one that kind of like, it was the one that was the most together as who we were, I think.
Yeah.
It had everything
Right.
incorporated into it.
Right. Yeah. And because, originally that wasn't going to be the title of the album. Originally it was just going to be 65 to 75, right?
Mhm.
I said, no, we need some sort of a title, but I couldn't really come up with a title. We actually almost did Meet Peach and Lee, right? As
Mhm.
a kind of a,
Yeah.
yeah, as a hat tip, right?
Mhm.
I thought that's a pretty good idea. Larry came up with that. That's a good idea. Meet Peach and Lee. That's good because nobody's ever heard of us, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
that's perfect. Well, then after we were sent after their songs were remastered, and I got to hear them for the first time remastered, and I went from the one song to the end, and the one that stuck out was "Not for Sale." The one that really did something to me was "Not for Sale," and so I suggested to Larry. I said, hey, what if we just call the album "Not for Sale"? It's got some double entendre in there as well. And it's one of the better songs on the album. So and he said,
and it's also a nod to the Beatles as well, as in the
I
Beatles
mean,
for
that's
sale.
the whole thing about Arlis and I. I mean, he said it. I mean, there's no ego trips, nothing. I wrote this, you wrote that. What he suggested it. And I went, wow, that's great. Simple, over, done with. And that's how we kind of approach all our songs. It was never like, oh, I got to get in on this, or I have to do this, or maybe I should do this because he did, never. We just always seemed to be in sync with what each other was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even, after 40 years or 50 years, right, when Larry and I get back together to put this album, to put our 2 cents in about this album, it went right back to the beginning. It was like we were back in high school again or whatever, and we haven't missed a beat, right? So it was easy. Like I said, certain things Larry just said, well, let me do the sequencing, and he put it together, and I listened to it and said, we don't need to go no further. We're not going to get any better than that, right? That's pretty good. As long as we put those 2 first songs at the end of the album, I'm good
Yes.
with it.
Well, you
Yeah.
see, in order to bring everything full circle, when you guys get together for the first time in person, you have to eat dirt clods.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nedley.
That his sister made, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking
Go
of
ahead.
which, you guys meet eating dirt clods. You childhood friends. You have this career, Peach and Lee for 10, 12, whatever, however many years. What happened? What happens? Why do you guys stop working together? Just life stuff.
Yeah, it's a really good question because I don't think either Larry or I has an answer, right? I'll tell you what I think happened. There was never, for those who give a damn, there was never any fighting or there was never an outing between Larry and I. It wasn't ever anything like that. There was no breakup. We got off the road. We went on the road. We were on there, I think 5 or 6 months we were on the road. And it was getting brutal. I mean, it was brutal. We were wanting to come home, and they were sending us further east, right? We were out of the West Coast. They were sending us further and further east. We got to Amarillo, Texas, and said we're going home. And so we turned around after 5 or 6 months, and that I think really hurt us as a band, as everything. That 6 months on the road, it did something that when we got back, there was a lot of promises made. When we got back, the money was supposed to be there for the studio, the label that was supposed to be there. All those things weren't there when we got back from the road. And it was pretty devastating. So I think it just we sort of separated and we just never picked back up, right? It was like we went on vacation and never came back on.
Yeah, I think it kind of just ruined the whole thing of being 6 months on the road, not being able to fucking write or to be in the studio. It kind of blew what we were really all about. I hated performing live. I still do. I've performed many, many times, as Steve knows, all over. And I've always hated it, but I love the studio, you know. And it was a big waste of time. It was a big letdown. And
huge letdown, yeah.
But then, life goes on. I think I don't know what marriage I was in, or what
number
I had, what marriage Arlis was in. We just kind of went like, okay, well, we're gonna go do this for a while,
Yeah.
Arlis continued doing music. I continued doing music.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And still do.
So,
but it was really nice it was nice. It's kind of surreal that people are listening to this album almost 60 years after it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really surreal for Larry and I, especially because, we know the stuff backward and forward, but, we hadn't heard it in a long time either. So for somebody to say, hey, this is really good stuff, kind of blows me away, honestly. I mean, you're talking about how are we taking the praise? I'm like, what praise? I don't know. Is there that much praise? It didn't seem like it to me, but the people who hear the album say it's great and that it should have been out 20 years or 30 or 40 years ago, that we missed the mark or whatever. I'm thrilled that it's out there now.
Yeah.
And if people like all these references to Raspberries and Badfinger, like we never felt like we were in that league. We were never in that league. We were just Peach and me. We were doing whatever we were doing, trying to get in and out of the studio. Like Larry said, we never really wanted to play. We never wanted to go out and play live. Our life was in the studio, and it still pretty much is. I've been working on an album for 10 years. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is, right?
I think me and Ronnie want to hear it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It just seems very surreal that, and when I first heard Steve, when I first heard your review, I honestly, I was blown away. I can't believe this guy likes this stuff. Huh? How can he like this stuff as old as it is, right? And it's not, we had trouble with, I'm going to say this out loud because we had trouble with the record company, Reminder Records. Not bad trouble, just he didn't want us to use the word demo.
Right? Oh, right.
All those songs that you hear on that album, those are all demos. Every single one of them is a demo. We did not go in the studio and polish it and finish it and whatever. Those are demos. So I wanted to call the album A Decade of Demos. right? I thought that would be apropos. Well, it didn't work out, but you know what I mean? It's they're demos. They were never actually polished and finished and released. They just Jessica took her time and made them sound as good as they do now. But
But you see,
they're
it's
demos.
timeless,
They were
though.
demos then, and they're
You know-
demos now to us anyway, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
They're still
person who's
good.
putting the needle down, the person who's putting the needle down doesn't know anything about what happened, how it came together. All they know is what they're hearing, right? And if they
Mhm.
like what they're hearing, I'm good.
These songs now, it's vinyl. I know, and I agree with Arlis. They're demos. They've always been demos, but because it actually made it to a record, for me,
They're no longer
I
demos.
can completely put them to bed. Although I sent Arlis 4 hours of something today of songs that he wrote on a pump organ back in the mid
Back in the day.
'60s, and a song called Red Skies in Atlanta, Postcards in the Mail. You know, just
Mhm.
I'm trying to get him to listen to it.
Yeah. So we've got hours of stuff we haven't heard in a long, long time, right?
Yeah.
Just
Wow.
reel-to-reel tapes where we would put a song together, or we'd start a song, and we would do things like we'd run out of tape, so we would tape over another tape, right? That's how we burn bridges. We would tape over tapes, right? Because we run out of
Right.
tape. We were
Right.
poor. I'm talking dirt poor,
Totally.
right? So tape was expensive, and so it's just kind of the whole thing is kind of weird. But I'm thrilled to death that they're archived. If nothing else, if nothing was to happen, if nothing was to come of this, that would be good. That would be good enough for me that, it's archived. Hey, there was a band called Peach and Lee at one time.
I also want to say it's a huge deal for Jeremy to do this on CD. He's never done a CD before. When Steve told me this, I had to write Jeremy and say, like, are you doing this on CD? And he said yes. And I've been a fan of this label of Jeremy's and his label before. He had a label called Sing Sing. So that Jeremy's doing this on CD, huge deal.
Well, that's it for this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'd like to thank my co-host, Ronnie Barnett, and our guests, Arlis Peach and Larry Lee from Peach and Lee. You can get this album, Not for Sale, available on Reminder Records, 2 LPs filled to the brim with amazing pop music from these two gentlemen. And please, definitely check that out, and hopefully it'll be on CD soon. We appreciate, and of course, and there's Steve buttons.
I refuse to
and
wear that
reminder.
button.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time on Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Goodbye, everyone.